All right, let's talk about something that is seriously changing how developers build things, serverless computing. And let's get one thing straight right from the start. It's not about a world without any servers at all. Nope, it's about a world where you don't have the headache of managing them anymore. So let me just ask you this. What if you could spend all your time, 100% of your energy, just writing the code that makes your app special, and never ever have to provision, patch, or scale a server again? I mean, really think about that. That simple idea is the powerful promise of going serverless. What this really boils down to is a fundamental shift in where we focus our attention. We're moving away from all that manual work of setting up the plumbing, the infrastructure, and moving toward what actually matters, writing the business logic that gives your users real value. It's basically trading all that operational overhead for pure creative coding. Now, this whole serverless idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's actually the latest step in a really long journey in computing, this constant quest to hide complexity and make things simpler. So let's take a quick walk down that path. Okay, so way back, we started with physical servers. One box, one app. Super inefficient, right? So then we invented virtual machines, which was a huge leap forward. We could slice up that single physical box and run a bunch of different apps. Much better use of our hardware. Then containers came along and pretty much solved that classic, well, it works on my machine problem by bundling everything an app needs into one neat package. You can see the pattern here, right? Each step was about removing another layer of friction. And serverless, well, it's the logical conclusion to all of this, getting rid of the entire infrastructure layer from our day-to-day concerns. So how does all this magic actually work? I mean, if we're not managing servers, where's our code even running? Well, the answer comes down to a really simple but powerful model. It's all about events and functions. The engine that powers all of serverless is something called an event-driven architecture. The best way to think about it is like a set of digital dominoes. An event is just the first domino falling. It could be anything. A user uploads a photo, a new piece of data gets saved to a database, you name it. The whole system is just sitting there, waiting to react when one of these events happens. And how does it react? Well, that's where function as a service, or FaaS, comes into play. This is the heart of how serverless gets done. You, the developer, just write a small, single-purpose piece of code, a function, that does one specific thing, like resizing that photo that just got uploaded. So the event is the trigger, and your function is the action. Simple as that. This whole life cycle is what makes serverless so incredibly efficient. First, an event happens. Boom! The cloud platform instantly finds and triggers the right function for that event. Then, just enough resources are spun up right at that moment for your code to run. And then, and this is the most important part, as soon as the job is done, it all just vanishes. The function is ephemeral. It only exists for the exact amount of time it's needed, and then it's gone. So we get how it works now, but what does this actually mean for you in the real world? This new model completely transforms a developer's day-to-day job, and it totally changes how a company has to think about its budget. This is where a developer's life just gets so much better. Entire categories of work that used to be a huge pain just disappear. Worried about scaling for a traffic spike? It's automatic now. The platform handles it. Staying up late for OS patching? Not your problem anymore. And that whole game of trying to guess how much capacity you'll need in 6 months? Gone. The platform just scales up and down based on what's happening right now. And that shift in responsibility leads to a massive financial benefit. This quote really nails it. Think about it. In the old way, you had to have enough servers ready to handle your absolute busiest moment, like, say, Black Friday traffic. But what about the other 364 days of the year? You're still paying for all that extra power to just sit there, idle, waiting. That is the exact waste that serverless just completely eliminates. And the amount of that waste can be, well, pretty staggering. Just look at this breakdown. For a lot of applications, the huge majority of your server costs, we're talking as much as 70%, is for capacity that is just sitting idle. It's kind of like paying for a 100-seat bus every single day when you usually only have 30 passengers. You're paying for the what if, not for what's actually happening. So what's the cost for all that idle time in a serverless model? It's exactly what you're seeing on the screen right now. Zero. Zilch. Nada. If your code isn't running, the meter isn't running. You only pay for the compute time you actually use, and it's often billed right down to the millisecond. Okay, so this all sounds pretty incredible, right? But let's be real. Serverless isn't some magic wand you can just wave at every single problem. To really get the full picture, we have to talk about the real-world challenges and trade-offs that come with it. For instance, you've got to think about vendor lock-in. When you build on one cloud provider's serverless platform, you end up using their specific services. And that can make it really tough and expensive to move somewhere else later. Then you have cold starts, that little bit of lag you might get when a function is called for the first time in a while. And debugging. When your logic is spread out across hundreds of tiny, separate functions, finding a bug can feel less like finding a needle in a haystack and more like trying to solve a puzzle in the dark. These are all real things you have to think about. So, let's wrap up with a single most important takeaway. Serverless doesn't get rid of servers. It gets rid of managing servers. The cloud provider takes on that massive operational burden, and that leaves you with an incredible amount of freedom to just innovate and build. So the question isn't just whether your business is ready for that freedom, it's what are you going to build with it? Thanks for digging into this with us.